Welcome into today's chat. This is one of my favorite kind of seasonal festivals, we can call it. And so I wanted to talk about today about the Lunar New Year, which is the Chinese New Year, and about Imbolc. And I know I had promised a conversation on shadows, but we'll do that maybe next week or the next week. Reading the wild rhythms, and it's everything I've always been feeling. Yes, I think that is just like the sweetest book in the world. I'm glad that you have it, Sarah. Yeah, my book, The Wild Rhythms, goes through all of this the seasonal work. And so when we work with the seasons, it is something that is just like so inherent to our soul. And that's why when you read the book, The Wild Rhythms, it's like, oh yeah, like of course, like I feel this, I've been feeling this. And so I really wanted to talk about this midpoint that we're going to be moving through in the next week. And so I think the midpoints of the seasons, like we always talk about the spring and autumn equinox, we talk about the winter and the summer solstice, but the midpoints are actually where the energy really feels like it shifts like tremendously. And so, and when you split the seasonal wheel into four, right, we'll get the winter and the summer solstice, the spring and the autumn equinox. And then when you do those diagonal cuts through it, you get the midpoint between the two. And what this midpoint does is it is either a slowing down of time or it is a quickening of time. And so there's a few layers of the midpoints that I'm going to talk about today, but it's really just to give you the practices and the reasoning behind it and kind of like how you can take advantage of this shift right now. So when we hit these midpoints, winter and summer, so if you just look at the period around the winter solstice and the summer equinox, they both, or sorry, the summer solstice, they both carry very similar energies in that they are very slow. And so by slow, I mean it feels like time pauses. So let me know in the chat if you feel like that. In winter, it's like for the like month around the winter solstice, it's like the sun doesn't really move on the horizon. It feels very like stagnant. And in summer, it's exactly the same. The sun doesn't really move. It feels like it's so full. And so we get these pauses in time, and they're meant to be rest periods. And that is why in winter you're meant to rest, and in summer you're meant to rest, because in winter, it's the rest that's going to restore your kidneys, right? It's going to restore your body for the spring ahead. But in summer, it's a rest because all the warmth is there, right? There's so much sun. And so if you spend too much time, overdoing it in summer, then there's too much heat that's created in your body. And what does heat create in the body? Anybody? I'm going to let you guys answer. Yeah, I find the pauses challenging to honor. Yes to feeling the pauses. When there's too much heat in the body, it causes inflammation. Right. And so what we're really learning how to navigate as we move through the seasons is how the external world is influencing us and how we can use it to our advantage. And so you will always be influenced, like I talk about, the sun and the moon, your personal cycle, right? And so it's not to resist it, right? It's to really flow with it. And it is, as humans, especially like Morgan, if you're in the summer of your life where, we're meant to be producing and creating and tending and, all the things, it is really hard to find pause because we're so used to going. And our culture also is so used to moving and going that in winter it can be really hard to do less. Right? But if we don't do less in winter, what happens is that we're burnt out by the time spring comes. And spring is the best time to plant seeds. And so remember, everything I talk about is a metaphor. You can plant seeds in your garden, you can plant seeds in a relationship, you can plant seeds in a business. I've been moving through this winter so differently since starting this work. Oh, I'd love to hear more, Jesse, and how it's changed. And so this midpoint is, for me, and I want you to start to pay attention to this, and you're going to have to move through a few of these cycles to see this, especially if you live in the same location. But for me, it's always when our pine trees and our oak trees start budding out. And so it's when the new growth comes, because I'm in a very temperate climate. So it doesn't really get very hot. It doesn't, like, it's kind of always cold, honestly. So it's very neutral here. And so since it's temperate, if you're by the ocean or by the equator, everything is just more harmonious in these splits, right? Even the days feel less dramatic. Whereas if you're high up north, say in Canada, it's like still the dead of winter and you still feel it, right? And you feel like like the changes are so drastic, right? Like winter is very cold and dark and summer is very hot and bright. I remember when I lived in Canada, the sun would rise at like 4 a.m. in the morning. That's when it would start rising. That's when the light would come out and it would go down at 11. And I would just get so neurotic because there was just so much light. And then in the winter, it would be like 10 to 4. And it was just like a sunset and a sunrise the whole time. And so it's more dramatic depending on how far, yeah, same in the UK, how far you live from the equator or how far you live from the ocean, right? And so these are like the general neutral points where people meant to live, right? And then we got really crafty as, you know, modern day humans, and we have heat and we have electricity, and now we just plop ourselves anywhere and we can just do it, right? But you still want to align to where you are. So start to notice around you right now, like what is happening in nature. Like even if you're in a city, you know, there's trees, there's nature everywhere. So go to a natural place and just start to notice. So I've shared my practice with you before that I just take the same walk every day. I take the same walk for the last like 4.5 years in our forest. And, you know, I'm really aware of these changes and these shifts because I'm noticing them over time through the years. And this is how you really tune into intuition and like knowledge, because it's what, like, nature's doing it automatically. There's no like, the mind isn't in the way, right? And so this is when, you know, I'm like, oh, this is my time to start to bud out. Like I feel that energy about to rise out of me. And so since we're going through this midpoint, we're hitting, like I said, this acceleration moment. So we were in this big pause of winter, and we will be in a big pause of summer. But before that happens, in Imbolc, we hit this midpoint where sun starts moving faster. And so it's because the Earth revolves an elliptical around the sun. So it's not a perfect circle, because if it was a perfect circle, we wouldn't have these acceleration moments and these pause moments, right? Because if you divide an elliptical by 365, you'll see the angles are very different. So when you're traversing through time on these moments where you're starting to speed up, right, those angles are changing quite drastically. And so as we're doing that, as we're moving through time in this moment, you're going to find, especially if you have the practice where you go out in the mornings and you watch the sunrise, you're going to notice it shifting quite quickly, right? It's going to start darting across the horizon. And so this is where sundials were used, right? People were like paying attention to this stuff. And so when you're noticing this, you'll notice that, like, what does sun do? It pulls you out earlier, right? It gives you energy. Like, plants live off of the sun. Oh, oh, I'm back? Okay. Okay. So where was I? Where did you guys hear me last? No sound. No sound? Can you hear? Let me know if you can hear my sound. Yes. Okay, perfect. Okay, so at these acceleration moments, at these midpoints, perfect. At these midpoints, we hit this peaking of our organ energy. So organ energy and nature is not linear. We do not just go kidneys, liver, heart. It's a rise and a fall, right? And so the energy of the kidneys has risen to the very peak in these midpoints, or whatever organ it is, but right now it's the kidneys. And so it's risen to the peak of their energy. And so now the kidneys are going to start to wane to give birth to the liver, just like a mother, when she gets very pregnant, would go inside, right, and start to conserve her energy. Animals do this, right, for labor, because then all of her energy is going towards her child. And so kidneys are the mother of the liver. So this energy of the kidneys has now peaked, and it's starting to birth the liver energy. And so we are getting out of the depths of the kidneys now, right? Even though February feels like eternity. Am I right? Like, it's like, when will spring come? But it's because And this is what's so beautiful about this flip, because we're moving from the yin seasons, the more feminine, introspective seasons of autumn and winter, into the outward, young, more expansive, more masculine seasons of spring and summer, right? When the sun starts really increasing, but it still feels really cold and dark, and it almost gets the coldest, doesn't it, in February, there's friction, right? That's created in the body. Where the sun is rising faster and faster and faster, earlier and earlier and earlier, your body's like, I just want to get out, and it's cold, right? And you're feeling the friction, right? Where there's like, it's like, it's cold and you want to be out in the world, right? And so friction is created, heat is created, and this is the spark that fuels your visions of spring. This is the spark that fuels all the seeds that you're going to plant. And so that's why when we rest in winter, and then we feel that, right? We feel the like, is it time yet? And it just gets colder, but it gets brighter. And your body is like, I'm ready. And that's so that like, right as we get closer and closer to spring, right when we're in March, we're just like, pew, ready to go. Yeah, shortest month and it feels so long. Yeah, exactly. But that's what we're doing, right? We're tending this flame, we're tending these sparks inside of ourselves. And so it's not that you need to start planting seeds and producing, it's that you want to be ready to go by the time the spring equinox happens, because if your seeds come in March, right, you've missed like a whole lunar cycle of the quickening. And the quickening is what accelerates things, right? And so when you want to accelerate your vision, right, you have to plant your seeds. That's why gardeners have a greenhouse and they plant their seeds, right? They start earlier because they know that that quickening is going to quickly wake up the seed. Because when you plant your seed right before the new moon, and then, the new moon flips it and cracks it open, and the moon starts waxing and getting bigger, right? And there's more and more moonlight in the sky at night, and then there's more and more sunlight, like the plant feels that. They feel that the timing is right. And so then all of a sudden when it's the full moon and there's no darkness, there's just full moon, there's just full sun, the seed is like, blah, and it bursts out, right? And that's what we want to cultivate in this practice, is it's like, right now you're tending that vision. What do I want for myself? Where do I want to orient myself this year? What were my reflections from the previous year? What didn't work? What did work? What do I want to aim my sights towards, right? You start to think about all of this. You really start to get clear. You really start to get decisive with where you're pouring your energy, so that when that moment hits, right, you hit the ground running, because everything in nature is now right behind you as you get moving and just pushes you forward. And so that's what I love about aligning to the energy of nature. It's knowing when to make the right moves at the right time. Because if you were going to try to start new projects in the middle of winter, or, get things going when your kidneys just want that rest, and then you're fighting against the pause, you're going to have to put in a lot of effort for a little bit of results. But if you can catch the wave, just like you're surfing, right, and get moving, right, and then you don't have to put in so much effort. And this is where in Taoism they talk about Wu Wei, the art of effortless effort. It is really aligning to nature, because who are we to go against it, and really knowing, right, that deep knowing by taking those pauses and taking those rests, exactly where to orient yourself, so that you are not putting in so much effort in something that's not working. Yeah, you're making so much sense right now, tending to that seed. Yeah, and when we start to talk about spring, we'll talk about how vulnerable a sapling is, right? How vulnerable the vision is, right? And that's why you don't have to share your vision with everyone, right? You get to keep your vision to yourself, and you can share it, but also know that, spring is the most vulnerable season, because what's the atmosphere of spring? If rain rains down, right, in winter, so the atmosphere is like water. It's cold, because cold descends down. In springtime, the atmosphere is wind. Right? And so the wind is meant to be the turbulence. The turbulence is meant to make that sapling strong or break it down so that it doesn't grow. And the reason for that is because the weak seeds, right? There's going to be weak seeds in the genetic stock. There's going to be ones that, it just takes too much to keep them alive. You want those ones to get bent over. You want those ones to go back to the soil, because what you want to do is you want to tend the seeds that are really going to grow and produce for you. And so it's not that every seed has to turn into a plant and provide fruit for you. It's that you can plant a bunch of seeds, but you will know, you will feel, you will see by tending the conditions of your life which one is growing, which one feels easy, which one feels like, oh, I just get on that wave and I start moving and this just feels so good and everything opens up to me when I'm on that current. And so that's what you really start to do at this timing and in these practices. And so when we hit those midpoints, again, that's when the organ energy peaks and then falls and starts to birth the next energy. So the liver is already starting to wake up a little bit. And so your liver looks out through your eyes. Again, vision in the day, and it's your dreams at night. And so I talked about this with my ladies at the Q&A on Monday of the virtual yoga studio, but I'm curious about you all, like, how are your dreams right now? Like right now, and this is the time of year always where my dreams just like turn on and I'm just like, whoa, I wake up and write pages of dreams down. And I'm also taking a dream supplement that is like really blowing my mind right now. But it is like, this is the time when the liver energy is like, ooh, I get to start like showing you things. I get to start revealing things to you because your subconscious is going to now begin to come out so that you can start to process all of this information. So you can, again, align your energy and your vision this year for this cycle to what you want to create. And so this is where January 1st, New Year makes no sense. And that's why I don't really celebrate it or make goals or make plans or make decisions. Right? Because like there is no culture that really celebrated that moment in time. It was very arbitrary. But cultures, just like Imbolc is celebrated right now, just like the Chinese New Year is the first new moon, which I believe is today, the first new moon of that calendar year. It was the moon that really started, right? And now it's the energy of the snake that started this next year off. Emma said, I'm definitely having more of a deep sleep state. Cannot remember all my dreams. Yeah, but around December, they were super vivid and intense. Yeah, and definitely like, you know, I just have a dream journal by my bed and I just make an intention before I go to bed to remember my dreams. And even if I wake up and I write down like 3 words, that's the act of recall, right? And so you just recall that thread deeper and deeper into the dreams each time you do it. And it works. Like you will start to remember more to the point where you will start to keep your consciousness threaded and you'll realize that you're dreaming. And that's where it gets fun. But sometimes it's just fun to watch what comes through from your subconscious. So as this kind of like initial start happens, and it's not the start because it's the beginning, right? The real like new year is December 21st or, you know, the winter solstice, whatever date that lands on, because the sun returns. Right? But the sun is still very slow. And so the beginning, you're not a human in the beginning, right? You're an idea, a thought, a seed, then you're in the soils growing, right? And then when you emerge, when you're born, you're in spring, right? So the beginning is the darkness. The beginning is winter. The beginning is, right, the emptiness. And then when we emerge in winter, there was a lot, right, that went on before you were actually formed into a human. So the moment your vision starts to materialize, there was a lot of work that went into that was birthed before, right? That materialization of the form was birthed. And so if you're feeling like that energy, it's not that you need to, especially if it's cold out, in a sense, go out and start like running a million miles a minute and doing all the things. It's that where can you start to channel that energy in something that your soul is like, oh, we have more time today. Like, what do we do that's just gonna like fill the soul up? Like, what do I do? And so start to do that, right? Because when you orient your energy and the extra sunlight and the extra time that you have in the day to something that you really truly want to do, you're going to feed, right, those seeds. You're going to feed that energy. And that's where, right, we know at every moment what we're supposed to be doing, right? If we're tired and we're like, I have to go to work and I don't want to go to work, I'm so tired, and you chug back a coffee and go, like, that's not what your soul wanted to do. And I understand it might be necessary, but can you, again, find that thing where you're like, oh, this is what I have more time and I'm just going to do it rather than sit and scroll or whatever it is, right? And so you do that thing, you start to tend that energy where you're like saying yes to your desires, you're saying yes to that creative expression within you. And then what happens where you pour your energy? The garden starts to grow, right? So the garden starts to grow. And then all of a sudden you're oriented there and like things come in, right? Things open up for you where you're like, oh, I never saw that coming. And this is Back. Okay. I'm going to have to start doing these on Zoom because I'm tired of this. Zoom always does well for me. Okay. So when you tend that energy, when you tend your creative expression, when you pour that energy that you're feeling, that friction into something you really want to do, whether it's write poetry, whether it's paint, whether it's like, I don't know, there's 20 of you in here right now, type something that you really wish you had more time to do. Like, what is it that your soul is like, I want to do this. I want everyone to type it. Dance. Right. Beautiful. Yeah, I'd like be honest, like I'm asking you to type this because I want you to actually ask yourself this and not just like listen to this information, like take it in, tend to my plants. Beautiful. So it's really honoring and knowing that like, oh, my soul does want to do something, create more music. Beautiful, Emma. Travel. Thank you, Teresa. And so there's always times that we can tend to this part of ourselves when we know what that is. And so Teresa's going to write travel on her fridge. And then when she has a little bit of extra energy, maybe she travels somewhere in town she's never traveled before if she doesn't have like all the time, right? More time to dance, yoga practice, get spring chickens. Jesse, come over and take all my chickens, please. And so what really ends up happening is that when we can really anchor in, like, I want this for me, and tend to that, even if it's for 5 minutes, a whole garden is going to grow, right? But we often feel like either I'm not worthy of this or I have so many things to do. There's like stories of like not enough time, whatever it is. And then we don't actually get to create that energy in our lives, right? But right now, that energy, when you create those, give yourself the time to engage in the thing that you want to do, all that acceleration energy is going to be pouring through that, right? And this is where like the magic will come in, right? You don't have to think that you know what it looks like. You don't have to micromanage it. You just have to pour your energy there. And then the opportunities that align to that energy might even look different, but they will come in and you'll feel that energy in the things that you're doing. And so the other thing I want you to think about is what is the one thing that's causing a lot of like, it feels like you're like stepping on the brakes in your life. Like, what's that thing that you keep having to show up for where you're like, oh, I can't do this anymore. Like, it's so hard. Like, what is that one thing for you? Right. And so maybe it's a job. Maybe it's, you know, a friend you're hanging out with. I don't know. Like, there's something in our life generally that's like sticky. That's like, oh, I have to do this. And so just acknowledging that and noticing it and feeling that difference in energy versus the energy to show up to where you want to show up, right? And so we want to start to tend our energy towards the highest excitement for ourselves in whatever way we possibly can, right? Even if you have to wake up earlier and tend that excitement because you're so busy, right? The sun's going to rise earlier and earlier, so that's perfect for you. And so at this time of the year, as the energy really shifts, right? Because you're not just shifting in the midpoint, like the other midpoints, we will feel, right, this shift in energy in Beltane after the spring equinox and before the summer solstice, right? We will feel the energy slow down, right? And then it's like that pause of summer. And so when you're noticing this, like this one in particular, this is the one where everything is birthed through. It's like the portal of creation. It is where the seeds are planted and new life begins. So it is such a powerful one to tune into. So intentions, right? What do you want for yourself? The intentions become energy and action when you pour your energy into that thing. And so do it. Right? Do it, do it, do it. Put a timer on your phone, put an alarm, whatever you have to do so that you're actually being accountable to it. Because if you're not accountable to your highest excitement, no one is going to be. Nobody, right? And so this is where we have to exercise self-responsibility. We have to be responsible for our health. We have to be responsible for, you know, like how we're pouring our energy. We have to be responsible for tending the things that we want to tend, that we love, that our soul is like crying out for us to do. We have to be responsible to those parts, because you are inside of yourself. You have to live with yourself, right? And so this gets to be a really beautiful time of year where you get to plant those seeds so that when the acceleration really comes underway, right, you're just getting to ride that wave and see where it takes you, right? And if it takes you just to be in more of your highest excitement, then that's perfect, right? That is something that the whole entire world needs. So all of you in here, tell me, because not everyone said it, but you can open the chat and just let me know how you're going to approach this seasonal change. Because I will tell you, this is when, in Canada, it was a little later because the energy came a little bit later for me, like maybe like a month or so later, but it's when I wrote all of my books, even books that I have unpublished. This is the energy where I just start writing. And I don't know why. I'm just like, oh, I gotta write. Like, and it's so easy. Like I wrote my Wild Rhythms in 3 weeks between 4:30 a.m. and 6:30 a.m. because I had a 6-month-old. And I would just wake up and be like, blah, it's like all coming out, right? And so it's when I've written all of my books and I just went, yeah, sauna with other women. I'm going to go sauna today. Yes, Emma. I just went, right, like just into that energy and let whatever meant to come through me, come through me. And there was no like, I had no idea what I was doing every time. I didn't think that like they would get published or that they kept getting like Yoga's Origami gets like the bestseller list every week. Like, thank you all so much for always getting it. But you know, it's like you just do not know what that energy is going to create, and you don't know years down the road what that ripple effect is going to be. But you have to follow the urgency, the inner like desire to do it. Not allow my fear to hold me back. Become more social, and I'm just going to do it. I'm going to do these things. Yes, yes, yes. I see several people are typing, so I'm going to give a moment to let everyone pop it through. Because truthfully, like, you know, we are here to inspire one another. We are here to walk each other home, right? And I get to serve as a reminder to you of what you already know. Like, I think it was Sarah that said, oh, the Wild Rhythms is like everything I've known. Yes, I just get to be a reminder to you. I'm not giving you new information. This is all here for you. I feel that intensity and desire for creation. I needed to hear this today, going to unleash this energy. Yeah, I put so much theory into my meditation recordings, but still haven't put them anywhere for the world to heal. What if people hate it? Yeah, and you know what I think is really important, because we all get these questions like, what if people hate it? What if they don't like it? I've spent hours on courses where I'm like, I hope they like it, but I have to do this anyway, you know, and you don't realize that like when we have a desire on our heart, it's because someone out there is praying for it. And when that desire is really strong, many people are praying for it. And so you wouldn't have that there if someone wasn't ready to receive it. And so this is where abundance is sharing your asset, right? Your asset that you have inside of you, because that is where you are giving to someone that needs something, that you have a piece to fill for them, and that they are then filled up, right? And that meaning of giving, right? That's what abundance is. It's like, because you have so much to share that without giving it, there's like this scarcity, like, oh, I had to keep it to myself, right? So definitely, if you feel that, right? Like acknowledge it and honor it, but also someone wants it, someone needs it, someone's life is going to be changed by it. Like, you guys, what if I didn't create this app, you know? Jasmine, my focus are my health goals and beauty goals to also set the foundation at work and life for harmony and alignment. Beautiful. Sarah, I quit a job I didn't like and I feel something big and beautiful coming. Congrats, Sarah. Sherry, it isn't love. If it isn't love, it isn't real. Yes, saying that helps so much. What if people love it? Yeah, what if people love it? What if people are just waiting for what you have to offer? You know? And so this is where we have to get out of our heads thinking that, like, you know, that we're not good enough or that we don't have enough information for people, right? Because there could be people that are just waiting. They've been waiting so long for you to finally share your gift, because your soul has known all along that that's what it was meant to do. So I invite you to take some of those concepts into the next couple of weeks and really just feel the energy, go out into nature, see what's kind of budding around you or not, know where you live, because different energies are going to be at play, right? And this is where, like, you know, my garden can grow slow all year because it's so painfully temperate. Whereas in Canada, I would have no garden for 9 months. In 3 months, the whole entire thing would have its whole entire life cycle. There'd be so much and it would all be gone. And so there's this polarity of where you live, right? And what it's going to reveal to you. And you're going to feel that same energy. Yeah, my little heart is buzzing with this absolute energy. Thank you so much for your kind words. I'm still super scared, but I'll have some rest and make a game plan. Yeah, yeah. We all need to be sharing our offerings with the world right now. Crying, so beautiful. And it's a necessity, you know, it is essential, because if it's of the soul, it's essential. And it seems crazy. It'll seem crazy to everyone. And that is where, like, we get to change the norm, right? We get to change what is really occurring on this planet through, you know, how we decide to live our lives. Like, every day I wake up and I'm like, oh my God, I just like made this up. I made my work up, and I've made it up since I was 22 because I couldn't walk into the accounting firm anymore. My soul was screaming at me every day. And I was like, well, I guess I'll just make up my life. And that's the truth, is like, you have to be brave enough to know that like when you step into the abyss, you will still be held. Like, like you can't stop being held. You know what I mean? Like you're never going to fly off into nowhere. You're here, you're held, you're supported just by virtue of being a human being in a body. Yeah, Jessie's going to start sharing her art more. Beautiful, beautiful. And again, remember, vision is tender, and you can't give up on your vision. You can't stop seeing that on the horizon, and you can't stop working towards it, because, we would have so many times where I could have given up, many, many, many times. And it takes time. It takes time for things to grow. It takes time for things to fruit. And you just never know. You can never control what's going to come through it, but it's always exactly what you're going to need at every moment. So this is Imbolc. This is where our, often Kat, your words are so beautiful and well aligned. Yeah, we are also held. This is where our kidney energy now is going to start to take a backseat, right? It's going to start to decline. It's going to be the hardest to support the kidneys in springtime when the liver takes center stage. And so working through the fears is a really big part of aligning your kidneys or your willpower, right? Because that's what the kidneys are. They're how you're stepping out onto the planet. And kidneys have the willpower to know that when you're working, right, with the soul, with all of these different principles and aspects of your soul, you have to step out, right, without fear, because again, you will be held and you'll be given whatever you need to keep supporting that vision for yourself. And so I hope you enjoy this transition. I hope you take a moment today, as this is like the new moon, and tomorrow and for the next week, to really just take the space and the time to honor your vision and to honor what you truly want to do, even if it's only for 2 minutes a day. Do some breath work, whatever it is, right? If you want to do more yoga, do the free practices in my app, hop into my virtual studio. I think it's all there for you. And so I think I'm going to leave it there. So next week, I think I'm going to do this call on Tuesday at 11 a.m. PST, because I won't have childcare on Wednesday. And then that's where I think I want to get into our little kind of shadow discussion, because when we work through the shadows too, right, we are working through a lot of our own fear before we step out with our visions in spring. So thank you all for being here today. I hope you have a beautiful, beautiful week and are enjoying this seasonal shift, and give yourself some time to feel it. You'll feel it. Thank you, Sherry. Thank you everyone so much for being here. And